Hey, Angela and Lori, I see you all coming in.
Hi there.
Hey, can you get your camera working, Angela?
Let me try.
I can hear you, can't see you.
Let's see.
And same thing, Lori, if you can get your camera working. Angela or Lori, can y'all get your cameras turned on for your computer?
I'm working on it right now. For some reason, it's acting like it won't detect it, but it's definitely there. So it was doing fine just a second ago.
Uh-huh. That's how it always works, right? There you go, Paula. I see you. And then Paula, you got to get your microphone working. Here's Mary. Hi.
Okay, I think I'm good.
Yay. Okay, Paula's good. Mary, you can hear me? I've
Yep.
got you muted. There you go. Now I can hear you. Angela and Lori, y'all almost have it fixed.
I've got my handy husband over here working on it now.
Okay, good, good. Paula, where are you calling in from?
Massachusetts.
Oh, very good. It's cold up there.
It is.
Yeah. Mary, where are you calling from?
I'm from Houston, Texas.
Okay, Houston. Okay. Yeah, I'm in the Woodlands, so I'm close to you.
Yeah, I live in the Heights area.
Okay. Paula, where are you in Massachusetts?
North of Boston,
Okay.
on the in Methuen on the New Hampshire border,
Methuen. Okay. Okay. Okay.
northeast Massachusetts.
Okay. Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
I've got several friends up there. Did anybody refer you to me or you just found me?
My daughter Julie Waltrip found you,
Oh, okay.
and she gave me this class for a Christmas gift.
Ah, gotcha. I remember that. Yes, yes, yes. Very good. Very good. Well, welcome to class.
Thank you.
Lori, have you got your Are you working on your camera, your microphone? And I hear Angela's tech support working.
I'm gonna switch to my laptop. I'm not sure what's going on.
And Paula and Mary, did you all find everything on the before class list?
Yes.
Good, 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 good.
I'm not quite sure I found everything. I tried. I'm not sure. I mean, there were definitely some terms that were, I have a Sony and the terms are a little bit different, but so maybe I did. We'll see.
Okay. Good. Yeah, I tried on the handout to give you as many Sony terms as possible. So Mary and Paula, you were the two Sony users in class.
Yes.
And then Angela's got Nikon and Lori's got Canon. And Paula, I know you're freezing up there, but we were a whopping 62 degrees today.
I know, but you had your own stretch of cold weather recently.
We did a couple of days. Yeah. Yeah. And it's rainy right now. So I got little over an inch, maybe 2 inches of rain today, 3 inches yesterday.
Oh, that's a lot of rain.
Yeah, it's a lot of rain, but it was so nice to be able to go outside without a jacket on today. It just felt felt really, really good.
Yeah, we're
We're
supposed to have
having
more rain
our own
tomorrow.
warm-up.
Oh,
What,
sorry.
Mary?
I just said we're supposed to have more rain tomorrow, and they said that we may actually, some places might have in 3 days a total of 8 inches.
Yeah, I know it. I know. Well, I had 3 yesterday, maybe 2 today, and then we had a heavy downpour while I was eating dinner. So no telling how much rain we're going to get before this is all over with.
Yeah.
But it was just nice not to have to bundle up to go outside.
We're having
Lori?
snow
Oh,
tonight.
go ahead, Paula. Yeah.
We're having a little snow tonight, not a lot,
Yeah.
maybe 3 inches.
Oh, we would shut down for 3 inches. How much is on the ground right now?
Well, we had a really big storm,
Mm-hmm.
probably almost 2 weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
and that we got 18 inches
Mm.
here, and then we had rain on top of that, and it did a lot of damage.
Yeah. Yeah.
And on the coast, there was a
Uh-huh.
lot of damage along the beaches.
Yeah.
And then a week ago, we had, I would say, maybe 4 or 5 inches. And it has been cold since then. So that snow is still on the ground. And so this snow will be on top, but we're expecting a warm up, so it won't last.
Okay. Okay. But no rain on top of that.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Good. Good.
Well,
good.
I don't know, the storm that you're having, I don't know where that's going next, but that would be a boatload of snow.
Uh-huh.
That volume of rain would
Yeah.
be feet of
Yeah.
snow for us.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Yeah. I saw that you all were supposed to get warm for the weekend. So I don't think there's more rain coming your way anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, Angela and Lori, are you all about to sign on?
I'm working on it. I'm switching to my laptop. It's installing updates. I feel so bad, Miss Kathy.
That's
It's-
okay. That's okay. Lori, what's the status on your end? Lori? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and begin. I've got 7 o'clock on my end. So I'm going to go ahead and begin. And Laura, Angela, just keep working on yours. And then Lori, let me know what's going on with you. If you need to send me a chat or something like that, then let me know what your status is on your end. Or Lori, can you hear me? I see you're off mute now. Okay, Lori, I'm going to send you a chat to see if you and I are connecting and to see if you're hearing me. Okay, I am going to go ahead and begin. Welcome to class. I hope you enjoy it and I hope you have a good time tonight. I'm Kathy Adams Clark, and feel free while we're going through class, if you ever need to ask a question, feel free to do it. If you need to wave at me and just let me know your hand's going up and you're going to ask a question, then feel free to do that. Or if you just want to talk, I've got it set so whoever's talking shows up in green. The class is also being recorded. Okay, so Lori's trying to figure out why she can't hear me. Okay, got it. Okay, so I'm going to chat back and forth with her just a second. Okay. Okay, class is being recorded, and so that means that you can listen to the recording tomorrow if you need to go over any complicated areas that you may not know exactly what I was talking about. So tonight, what you're going to do is we are going to learn the basic components of photography. And in photography, there are basic components. There is your light meter, there's your f-stop, there's your shutter speed, and there's your ISO. So we're going to learn those 4 components of photography tonight, because if you can learn light meter, f-stop, shutter speed, and ISO, then you can photograph anything. And so we've got to learn those 4 components. And if we learn those 4 components, then you can photograph anything. So it has to become almost reflex for you. If you're standing in front of this macaw as it's flying by, it's got to become almost reflex for you to know, okay, the most important thing for me right now is light meter, f-stop, shutter speed, or ISO. So you have to be able to know those 4 things so that no matter what you see and what you encounter, you can photograph it. So, for instance, when the lion raises her head up on your African safari, then what's the most important thing? Light meter, f-stop, shutter speed, or ISO? Because she's not going to wait for you. She's not going to stand there and pose for you and let you get your act together with your camera. The same thing if you see something amazing like a tall-masted sailing ship coming through the harbor in Venice. You've got to know immediately which one is the most important thing, light meter, f-stop, shutter speed, or ISO. Hey, I see you, Angie.
Hi.
Good to see you there. It's good to make
Thanks.
contacts.
Yes, ma'am.
So we need to get these 4 components down, internalized, and to where they almost become reflex. And then it becomes super, super easy to photograph something like the Milky Way out in West Texas. An incredibly easy thing to photograph, but you have to know what's the most important thing, your light meter, your f-stop, your shutter speed, or your ISO. So those 4 components will allow you to take a cute picture of the little kids across the table from you. It'll allow you to start becoming creative, photographing something with a motion blur. It'll allow you to do the eclipse through this area of Texas coming in April. We have another eclipse that we get to photograph. Super easy to do, but you just have to know light meter, f-stop, shutter speed, or ISO is the main component. And then when you find yourself encountering something amazing like the aurora borealis, then you just know that what's the most important thing, light meter, f-stop, shutter speed, or ISO. So that's why if we can get those 4 things down, then we can play. Then we can enjoy ourselves. Then we can explore different avenues of photography and different areas of creativity. So we just need to get those 4 things down, and then it's off to the races with photography. So that's what we're going to learn tonight. Light meter, f-stop, shutter speed, and ISO. And I'm going to warn you before we even begin, it's hard and it's technical. And you might get it immediately, but somebody else in class might be grappling with it. So be patient with yourself, be patient with each other, Hey, Lori, I see you there. Yeah, I got you now.
I
So
can hear now.
you be patient with each other. And before you know it, you'll have it down. And if somebody seems to be getting it a little faster than you do, don't criticize yourself because this is technical. So it's just like learning anything else in your life. My husband is learning piano and I am learning Spanish. And both of us being lifelong teachers are also grappling with how in the heck we're learning this thing. So be patient with yourself because to learn a new skill takes time. So tonight, I'm going to teach you the basics. Next week, you'll do in between, you'll do some homework. Next week, I'll teach you a little bit more and we'll talk a little bit more about some of the other things. I've got on your handout a second at-home assignment so that you can get a little bit more practice. And then if you would like to take any of my other classes, I just constantly keep putting more and more classes on. So we don't learn photography in one sitting. There's no way we can. Same as we can't learn piano in one sitting or Spanish in one sitting. So we learn a little bit, and then when we get our brain ready for it, we learn a little bit more. And then when we get our brain ready, we learn a little bit more. So it's a step-by-step learning process. But once you get it, it's like baking or riding a bicycle or any of the other skills you all might have, like sewing or quilting or whatever you might do. Once you learn it, and then you don't forget it. And then it just becomes nice because we can build our skills on top of each other. So this is the beginning. Be patient. And you're also learning your camera tonight. So we've got to know where all this stuff is on your camera as well. So that's what we're doing tonight. And then later on, if it comes time that you want to do something like, you know, your cat in front of the Christmas lights, super easy photograph. I'll show you how to take it a little bit later on. Then you're going to have the skills that you need to do something like this. So enjoy yourself and have fun, and don't beat yourself up if you don't get it first thing. Okay. Be patient with yourself. Okay. On your handout that I gave you, the before class handout, was there anything you couldn't find? Or you pretty much got them all?
Well, I wasn't sure about the histogram display where you said turn on and in one color if possible. I
Okay.
mean, I found a histogram. I mean, I found some, but I'm not sure what that looks like when you say turn it on in one color.
Okay. Sometimes you can, on some cameras, you can get it in black and white, or Nikon gives it to you in yellow and white, yellow and black. And then sometimes you see it in red, green, and blue. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Yeah.
Yeah, mine's red, green, and blue.
Okay.
I couldn't get it in one color.
Okay. And it's probably buried deep in there somewhere. Anything else, Paula?
The highlight indicator.
The highlight indicator. And Paula, you're on one of the Sonys, right?
That's right.
So your highlight indicator would be called Zebra. If you need to go look for it, it might on Sony be called Zebra. And I'll show you what it looks like when we come to it, and then you can go looking for it. Okay. Not tonight, but later on. Anybody else, Angie or Lori?
The only problem, I'm sorry, Lori. The only problem that I had was the ISO. I was able to find it and change it to the 200, but it still also is saying that there's an auto ISO on.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. Because you're a Nikon, Angie. And so
Right.
in yours, you do your menu and you do your first menu, if I'm not mistaken. Don't go digging for it right now. Your first menu, and then where it's ISO, you've got another menu underneath it where we can turn off. It's called high ISO noise. No, it's called high ISO. And it's another menu where you can turn that other ISO off.
Okay.
Okay. We have to go twice in Nikons. They definitely don't want you to change that one. So we got to go twice. Lori, what couldn't you find?
The f-stop.
The f-stop. I'll show you where that is in just a second. Okay. So I'll get that. Okay. On all of your cameras, did you find your diopter? Can you all see my screen and you can see my cursor?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Did everybody find your diopter?
Yep.
Right
Yes.
up there. Okay, so the diopter, when you're looking through the viewfinder, because we want to look through the viewfinder, it's not stable to hold the camera out like an iPhone. You're going to look through the viewfinder. But that diopter needs to be set for your eye prescription. So if you handed me your camera and I look through the diopter, I'm not going to be able to see as clearly as you might. So you're going to set this for your eyes. And when you're looking through the diopter, through the viewfinder, you would push your shutter button halfway down to turn all the lights and displays on the inside of the camera on. And then you would rotate that little tiny dial, or if it's a lever on your camera, some of the cameras are an up or down, some of them are a dial, and you adjust that so that all the numbers through the viewfinder are clear to your eye. Okay. So that's what that little diopter is for. So if you ever hand your camera to somebody and they say, I can't see anything through here, that's because it's not set for their eye prescription. So that's what the little diopter is. Very important. Also, your fold out screen, we use it twisted and folded up against the back of the camera. We don't use it folded out like this. It's going to end up getting broken. And it also doesn't allow you to hold the camera steady. So instead of holding the camera with that screen folded out, we fold it back in, twist it around so that it's facing out. But we want to be able to see that information that's displayed for us on the back of the camera. Okay, so diopters. Okay, so the Rebel, so that's Lori, right?
Yes.
Okay, Lori, this is your Rebel 7 because you got a Rebel 7, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, did you get this display on the back of your camera?
Go to menu.
When you push your DISP button, or you're right here, when you press DISP, do you get this showing up on the back of your camera?
Yes.
Good, 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 good. Super. And it looks like this. Then when you get this on the back of your camera, Lori, you're going to then push the Q button. And when you push the Q button, called the quick button, you can then either use your front dial to rotate, or you can use any of these little toggles to move yourself around on that back display panel. And then when you find one of these items that I want you to change, you push the set, it pulls up another menu, and then you can push the Q to accept it, and then you can move back around. So that's how you use that back display panel.
Okay.
And then your f-stop, Lori, you push this AV plus minus button right here. See right there? You push that with your thumb on your right hand, and then with your forefinger on your right hand, you rotate the front dial, and that will change your f-stop for you. So you push this with your thumb, rotate with your front dial, and that changes your f-stop.
Does it matter if there's like a, let's see, does it matter the lens I have on it right now?
No. No, so, but you just have to push and hold with your thumb. And then first of all, wake your camera up, Lori. Everybody, you got to wake your camera up when we do these things. So you flick your shutter button halfway down just a little bit to wake your camera up, and then put your thumb on that plus minus AV button, hold it hard, and then rotate the front dial by your pointing finger, and that'll change your f-stop.
Okay.
Okay. And then on the front, there's nothing that we need to look at on the front of your camera, Lori. You've got your command dial is this little dial right here. Your shutter button is this one right here. So this little dial right here is your command dial.
Okay.
Okay, Nikon. So Angie, on your camera, on your 3400, so your back display panel looks like this, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yay! So you push that info button on yours, that brings up this back display panel. And then you can use this toggle over here called your control dial, and you can move around this bottom section.
Yes.
And then when you get to something you want to change, you push the OK button, that brings up some more stuff. And then you make your change, and then you push OK again.
Yes, ma'am.
And the same thing with your camera. This will go to sleep so that you can't make any changes. So you'll have to just flick the shutter button just to turn it on, wake it up, just like you wake up your computer.
Right. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. There, I think that's got you pretty much set. Okay, and then Paula, you've got the A7 5, right? A7 4.
Yes.
And then with your FN button right here, you can get a display panel that looks sort of like this,
Mm-hmm.
correct? And then the same thing, you can use this roller ball or the display to move between each one of these items. And then when you get to the item you want to change, you push in, rotate the little roller dial again to go to the change you want to make, push in again. Right?
Right.
Super. Okay. Very good. So your FN button is going to be the get everything going. Angie, it's your I button that gets everything going. And Lori, it's your Q button that gets everything going. So you've got to know what the camera manufacturers do to get us all moving in the right direction. And then also, Paula, with your camera, your f-stop is this back dial right here. And your shutter speed is this front dial right here. So going back to your back, your f-stop is this dial right back here. And then your shutter speed dial is the dial in the front. You are a 2-dial camera. So you
I
rotate.
think mine is reversed, actually.
It could be reversed. It depends on how the camera's been set up. Yes.
Yes, it is reversed.
Yeah. So it can be reversed, or it just depends on how it's been set up on yours. And then going back to Angie's for just a second. Angie, you are a 2-dial camera also. You have a dial in the front and a dial in the back. So one of those dials takes care of your f-stop and one takes care of your shutter speed. So Angie, you're a 2-dial camera also. And then Mary, on your camera, you're what's called a bridge camera because your lens does not come off, correct? It does come off? I can't hear you, sorry.
Oh, sorry, I muted myself.
Yes.
Yeah, that's correct. It's a bridge camera. Yeah.
It's a bridge camera. Okay, good. So your f-stop is this ring right here, correct?
Yep.
So when you rotate that ring, then that's how you change your f-stops on your camera. And then your shutter speed, and then your shutter speed is this dial right back here, correct? Your back dial.
Yes.
Yes, good, good. And then you have a very similar layout to what Angie has on the back of her camera. You've got your FN button once again, which is your main function button. And then you can use your display roller to move to the different items that you can change. Push in the center of that, make the change you want to make, push in again, and then continue on.
Yeah, mine used to actually look like that yesterday before I started playing around finding all your little things. And now I have a lot more stuff on mine when I hit the FN button. So
Okay.
I may need to try to simplify it again to figure out why I got so much stuff on it now.
It'll be interesting. Okay, good. Okay.
But I know
There's
exactly,
always-
yep, it used to look like that.
Used to look like that. Okay, very good. Yeah, Paula.
So, my camera looks like this on the screen,
Mhm.
but also if I hit my display button several times, I can get that same sort of black screen with all the information on it that Angela maybe, or the Canon and
Yeah. Exactly. When we push that FN button for Sony's, the Q button or the I button, if we push it 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, it has various things that it rolls through. So for me, as in a teaching mode, I like these screens that I've just showed you because then I could look on the back of your camera and we could look at the exact same thing.
Okay, thank you.
That's what that is, because you've got 1, 2, 3 sometimes that you have to go through to get what screen you're looking for.
Okay, I got my display back. I had to go back into display and change that because yesterday I put on display all information.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I just turned it off.
Okay, that's okay. Whatever works and whatever works for right now, because you might find eventually you want something else. Now, turn your camera. Everybody's in the manual mode, right?
Yep.
Okay. And the reason you're in the manual mode is because nothing is automated. There are not going to be any changes in your camera unless you make them. Except Angie, we got to turn off that little ISO
I
thing.
found it. I did find it while you were talking about the other one, so it's off now.
Oh, super. Okay. Very good. Very good. Okay. So when you now, cameras in the manual mode up on top, everybody's at f5.6, correct?
Yep.
Yes.
Everybody's at 5.6? Okay.
Yeah.
The only reason you're on 5.6 is because every lens gets 5.6. So it's that way where everybody gets it. So that's why you're at 5.6. There's no magic to it. Look through the viewfinder, push your shutter button halfway down. And when you look through your viewfinder and push your shutter button halfway down, you're going to see a scale like you see on the bottom of the screen here. You see that scale? Yeah,
Mhm.
Angie, you see it. Paula,
Yes.
you see it?
Yes.
Good. Mary?
Yeah, it looks a little different than that, but yeah.
Yeah. Lori?
Yeah.
Good, 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 good. Okay. This little scale is called your light meter. Your light meter is communicating through that scale. Is that scale right in the middle or is it off to the side?
It's
Mine's
off to
off
the
to the
side
side.
for me.
Yeah, it's way over to the left in my case because it's dark.
Okay. Okay.
Mine is right in the middle.
Yours is right in the middle, Angie, on yours?
Yes.
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay. And then Lori,
Mine was off to the right.
off to the side. Angie, point yours up at the ceiling. Does it stay in the middle?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we'll still have to fix something. So there's another glitch in there somewhere. That's what, okay, but don't worry about it. We'll find it. So this scale is trying to tell you, if you'll put me right in the middle, I will give you a perfectly exposed image. So that's your light meter scale. When I say balance your light meter, what I mean is put the scale right in the middle and don't worry about it because you don't know how to do that yet. So when I'm telling you balance your light meter, what I'm saying is put that little scale right in the middle. If you put that scale right in the middle, then we get a perfectly exposed image. The problem is your light meter, the physical functioning piece of equipment called a light meter, you have 3 to 4 different light meters, and each one of them reads the light in a totally different way. So depending on what light meter you have set for your camera, it'll read the light one way or it'll read the light another way. So put your camera down for right now and let me explain to you what are your different types of light meters and why you would use them and why you would not use them. And also, if you'd like to, on your handout that I sent you, this is a good time to make some notes right on that handout. So inside your camera, we've got this light meter. And by the way, here's what the icon looks like. This is the multi-light meter for Sony cameras. This is the evaluative light meter for Canon cameras. And Angie, on your Nikon, it looks similar to this little icon right here. Okay. You can see it on your back display panel. So if we go to make a change, this is what it would look like. But right now, let me show what they do and how they're different. So you've got 3 different to possibly 4 different types of light meters inside of your camera. A light meter originally started out as that piece of equipment that my grandfather and my father used to hold out in front of them when they were taking pictures. And then they would look at it and then they would go back to their camera and then make adjustments and then they would take their pictures. So a light meter prior to the 1950s was a handheld device that photographers held in their hands. The 1950s gave us the engineering technology where we could put that light meter inside the camera. So your light meter now is inside your camera. You don't have to buy an external device. Your light meter is right inside your camera. So that light meter, the first one that we got, was called a center weighted light meter. And on your handout, you'll see that it's called a center weighted light meter. And what that light meter did is it read all of the light in the entire frame. It read the sun, it read the shadows, it read these midtones, it read all the light, and then it just averaged it all together. That's all that it did. Center weighted, it put a weight on what was right in the center of your frame. So if you took white, like the sun here, and you took black, like the shadows here, and you had white paint and black paint, what color would you get?
Gray.
Gray, exactly. And that's what a center weighted light meter did. It really just kind of averaged it all together. And as a result, it was kind of okay, but not really okay, but it was kind of okay. So that's what a center weighted light meter is. It reads the light from entirely throughout the frame, averages it based and gives a little bit of weight to what's in the center of frame because that's where your subject is going to be. But overall, it's not the best technology. And then the center weighted light meter got updated in the 1980s with this new thing called spot meter. Now, Nikon went to the patent office first on this, so they got to call it spot. Canon went to the patent office afterwards and had to call it partial. So Canon calls it partial, Nikon calls it spot. And since then, everybody who's come along afterwards has called it spot because now they can do that. So in your Sonys, it's called spot. So the spot meter or the partial meter in Lori's camera only reads this spot right here. That's it. It ignores the sun, it ignores the shade, and it only reads the light in that little spot right there. Now, when this came out, it really revolutionized the way we could take a lot of photographs because it's only reading the center of the frame. It's only reading the spot right in the center of the frame. So this means when we were doing an eclipse, for instance, the light meter doesn't read the sky, it only reads the sun. So it ignores the sky and only reads the sun. When we're doing a full moon coming up in a black sky, the spot meter only reads the light off the moon, which is reflected sunlight, but it doesn't read the black sky. So we get a perfectly exposed moon. The spot meter, if we use this on a performer on stage in a spotlight and place them in the center of the frame and did our meter reading off of that, we would perfectly expose the performer, but the black stage wouldn't interfere in the exposure. For me, as a bird photographer, this means that I could have a hawk on a branch against a beautiful blue sky. The old days, it would have been a silhouette because the sky was so bright. But with spot meter, I could expose for the hawk's breast, and the sky didn't factor into the equation for the exposure, and I would get a perfectly exposed hawk, and the sky would go dark or light depending on what tonality it was to the hawk. So the spot meter gave us a new way of taking pictures, and it was really, really good. We don't need it that much anymore, though. So we need it very, very rarely, an eclipse, a full moon, a performer in a spotlight. We just don't need it very often because it's only when we're photographing something bright against a very dark background, something dark against a very light background. So we just don't end up using this very much. So right now, after spot meter or partial meter for Lori's camera, you can say you're going to use that about 1% of the time. So we just don't use it very much. It's a real specialty light meter that we would use now. But the light meter that we do use is the light meter that came out in the 1990s and has since been massively revamped and remodeled. And this is called your matrix meter for Angie's camera. It's called evaluative meter for Lori's camera, and it's called your segmented or multi-zone for the Sony cameras. This is the light meter that packs all the punches right now. This is the light meter with the massive amount of technology in it. And this light meter reads this section, averages everything in that section, reads this section, averages everything, reads that section, averages everything, reads that segment, averages everything, reads that segment, averages everything. That's when it started out in the 1990s. Now in newer cameras like Paula's high-end cameras, this light meter is now reading 64 different segments throughout the frame. And it even knows that there's a really bright area up there and a really dark area down here. So this matrix evaluative segmented multi-light meter is reading the light in incredible ways now. So we can photograph now things that we just never used to be able to do as you know, I'm a professional, but as amateur photographers or just, you know, regular run-of-the-mill photographers. So this new light meter is just revolutionized the way that we're able to take photos. So we're going to keep it on your matrix in Angie's camera, your evaluative in Lori's camera, and then in the Sony's, either the segmented or the multi-zoned, whichever one it's called in your camera. And that's where you should have it set right now, correct?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Everybody's got it set there. Good, 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 good.
Yeah.
So to give you an example, this is evaluative matrix segmented multi-zoned. So I point my camera at the entire scene. I want to get a silhouette of a sun. So I'm of the shrimp boat. So I'm going to do something just a slight bit different, but I'm not going to tell you about that right now. And then I balance my light meter and I take the picture. If I used my spot meter, just the center of the frame, this is what the picture would have looked like. And this is what I saw with my eye. So between the two photographs, you see that the sun's going down a little bit. And that's just because it's a dull Gulf Coast sunset. I'm not really getting anything that I want, and I'm out there playing. It's not coming out like I want it to. But this is the evaluative matrix meter reading everything. And because it's got that sun in there, then it's definitely going to put that shrimp boat into silhouette. And then I did one more thing, and I'll tell you about that later on. But this is what I saw with my eye. And it's showing up like this because I told the camera, I told the camera, only read this light right here. So by being on spot meter, I'm telling the camera, only read what's right there in that circle. And many of your cameras actually give you a little circle there to show you where their spot meter is. So which meter we have set determines our final outcome. You can leave it on your multi, on your segmented, on your evaluative, on your matrix meter. Once again, 99% of the time. Most of the time, you don't need to make any changes at all. It's only when we're in that really, really extreme situation that we would need to go over to our spot meter. Okay. Now you've got some other light meters in there, and it's just because the manufacturers are coming out with new things, but we don't need to consider those either. So we leave it on that main big, huge light meter that's reading the entire frame. And then we only make a change if we've got something really, really different that we're photographing. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So you've made one decision in your life now. So if you find yourself photographing something where it's pretty bright, but it's up against a really dark background, that would be when you say, whoa, 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 whoa. What'd Kathy say? She said we might want to go into spot meter for this situation. And this is one where, yes, you might want to go into spot meter. And then you would be metering the light just off of the owl's face, and the whole background would be ignored because we don't need to factor that into the equation at all. But we're not going to encounter those things very often, but just in case you do, that's when we would go into spot meter. White balance. And this isn't on your handout, but I found that it's just important for me just to say it right now. I also use auto white balance. The less buttons we've got to push to take our pictures, the more we can concentrate on our photography. I leave my white balance on auto white balance all the time. I never change it because we can always change the white balance of the photograph afterwards in processing software. Each one of these photographs was shot under exactly the same lighting situation. The only thing that changes is white balance up on the top is one thing, white balance over on the right is another thing, and white balance down on the bottom is another thing. The auto white balance is the one on the bottom, but the two blue ones up on the top are one of the other white balances. So I don't change my white balance. I leave it on auto all the time. So I don't move it to shade. I don't move it to sunshine. I don't move it to indoor. I don't do anything with it. I leave it all the time. One less button you got to push. Okay. So f-stop, let's talk about f-stop and what an f-stop is. If you look at this photo of this malachite butterfly, you'll see that the butterfly's body is in sharp focus. A little bit of the bleeding heart flower is in sharp focus. A little bit of the leaves are in focus. And then the leaves in the back are out of focus. And then that brown stuff in the very back is definitely out of focus. This is the job of f-stop. F-stop controls how much we see of a photograph and how much we don't see in a photograph. It's called depth of field, but what we see is this f-stop, or this word f-stop. So what's in the very back there? What's that tan stuff?
Brown
Grass.
sky.
Yeah,
another-
yeah, a building.
Green?
It doesn't matter, does it? Because it's not important. It's gravel in a parking lot. But if I let you see it, because the human eye studies anything that is in focus and it ignores anything that's out of focus. If I let you see that gravel that was in the background, then, and you'd recently been shopping for gravel, you would immediately go back there to that gravel and you would start paying attention to that gravel, and I would lose your interest completely in my photograph. So in your photos, we only show people what's important and we blow everything else out of focus. And we do that through our f-stop, because the human eye looks at what is in focus and it ignores what is out of focus. So what I'd like you to do, turn your page over where you all are taking your notes and use the back of one of your pages. Make it horizontal if you would. So, you know, flip it over and lay it out horizontal. And you're going to write on this a lot. So give yourself some room. Make a horizontal line down here at the bottom, but give yourself plenty of room to write, and make yourself a vertical line. And once again, give yourself plenty of room to write. And down here on this horizontal line, you're going to write these numbers, the 2.8, 3.5, 4.5, 5.6, 6.8, 8, 11, 16, 22, and 32. 2.8, 3.5, 4.5, 5.6, 6.8, 8, 11, 16, 22, and 32. And then on the vertical line, you are going to write 500, 250, 125, 60, 30, 15, 8, 4, 0.3 with quotation marks next to it, 2 with quotation marks next to it, and then the word bulb. Okay, these numbers down here at the bottom, 2.8, 3.5, 4.5, 5.6, 6.8, 8, 11, 16, 22, and 32, these are called f-stops, f/stop. Function symbol from advanced math, slash, the division symbol, and then the word stop. It's a mathematical formula. And luckily, you never, ever, ever have to use the mathematical formula. Learn how to do it until you take a very advanced class of mine. And there's only one class where I even make people do the math formula. So you never have to do it. Okay. But these f-stops are the number we can see through our viewfinder, the number we can see on the back of the camera, the number that we talk about. Kathy, what f-stop are you going to use? 6.8. Mary, what f-stop did you use on that photo? I used an f16. Or when you download your photos onto your computer, you can open them up and look in the metadata, and you can see that you used a 6.8. So 20 years from now, you can open that picture up and see what f-stop you used. So these f-stops are the numbers that you and I talk about. These are the numbers we communicate with. So 2.8, 3.5, 4.5, et cetera. Those are the numbers we communicate with. What's happening in the machine inside your camera is you have this thing called an aperture. And the aperture, when you dial in a 2.8, is a very big opening, as big as you can possibly get on your camera. And so draw yourself a big circle under 2.8. And when you dial your lens to 3.5, or you dial the dial to 3.5, that opening gets a little smaller. And at 4.5, it gets a little smaller. And at 5.6, it gets a little smaller. And at 6.8, it gets a little smaller. And at 8, it gets a little smaller. And 11, it gets smaller. And you know what happens all the way to 32. It just keeps getting smaller and smaller. So this aperture is in your lens. It's not in the camera body, it's in the lens. And it's letting the light through the lens. And then that light is going to hit the sensor that's in the camera body. So this aperture is letting in a lot of light, a moderate amount of light, or just a tiny amount of light. So that's called your aperture. But the magic happens when the light comes through the ground glass lenses in your lens, because you've got 9 lenses in that lens, convex and concave lenses, all fitting in there precisely. When the light comes through those lenses and goes through that aperture, that's when the magic happens, because that's when depth of field happens. So depth of field is the result of physics of the light going through those convex and concave lenses. Have you noticed already how much science and how much math is in photography? Can you see that already? So when the light is going through those ground glass lenses, that's what's creating the depth of field. When you have your aperture opened up to 2.8, a big, huge aperture opening, then there is only about a 1/16 of an inch in focus. So draw yourself a little teeny weeny line under the 2.8, because if you set your lens on 2.8, there is only about a 1/16 of an inch that's in focus. And when you go to 3.5, you might get 2/16 of an inch. And when you go to 4.5, you're going to get a little bit more than that. And when you go to 5.6, a little bit more, 6.8, a little bit more in focus. And under 8, make yourself a nice, thick, heavy line under F8. Because there's an old saying in photography, F8 and be there, meaning just put your camera on F8. Most stuff will be in focus. We won't have that nice soft background back there, but most stuff will be in focus, and just shoot. So that F8, most stuff's going to be in focus. We're not going to have anything blurred. We're not going to have anything kind of artsy looking. Most stuff's going to be in focus. Your program mode, by the way, F8. So it's just going to put you on F8 because most stuff's going to be in focus and you're not going to mess anything up. And then if you go all the way through the scale and get to F32, at F32, that really tiny, tiny opening that's only letting a little bit of light in, you're going to have infinity in focus. So at F32, from the the cattails in the front of the lake at the base of our photograph all the way to the mountains behind, all that's going to be in focus. So at f32, everything is in focus. Now, this might seem a little counterintuitive because 2.8 only a little bit's in focus, 32, lots of stuff is in focus, doesn't kind of make any sense with the big hole, the little hole, all that. The way you can remember this is that at 2.8, 2 things are in focus. And at 32, 32 things are in focus. The bigger the number, the more stuff's in focus. The smaller the number, the less stuff's in focus. Okay? So when you want to determine how much I want to be in focus in my photograph, you look at the f-stop and you look at it and you determine how much do I want to be in focus? Do I want a lot to be in focus, or artistically, do I just want a little bit to be in focus? That's how you choose your f-stop. How much we want the viewer to see and how much we want the viewer to not see. And you don't see this, by the way, through the viewfinder. So it's something that you don't see. You just have to internalize it. So in this photograph of this statue, you see how the hand's out of focus and the wall's out of focus? So it's my choice as a photographer that I choose, in this case, probably about a 5.6. I put the focus point on the statue's face, and that allows me to put the hand of the statue out of focus, and it allows me to blur the background. What's in the background?
Brick wall?
Yeah, some sort of wall, villa wall in Italy, you know, stucco wall, whatever. So it's not important. It's just background at this point. But if a butterfly all of a sudden landed on the statue's finger, and I wanted to get that butterfly on the finger plus the statue's face, now I've got to make a decision what f-stop I would use. And to get both of those in focus, I'm going to have to sacrifice my background to being out of focus. So I'm going to have to make a choice and make some trade-offs because now I want to take a different type of photograph. So the f-stop that we choose determines how much of the subject is going to be in focus and how much of the subject is not going to be in focus. So what's in the background of this photo of the little girl?
Plants.
Plants? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Pot plant?
Pots, plants. Once again, I don't want you to look at them, because if you're not interested in the little girl, you're going to go back there and you're going to go, that's that pot I was looking for. That is exactly the one I need on my back porch. So I've lost you once you're wandering around and looking at something in the photo that I don't want you to see. So with this one, I knew good and well that I just wanted her in focus. The further the background is away from the subject, the more we can blow it out of focus. So me as a photographer, I'm also shifting to the side a little bit so that I've got a complete unobstructed 10 feet away from her in those pots. Because the closer the background is to the subject, the harder it's going to be to blow it out of focus. The farther away it is, the more I'm going to be able to blow it out of focus. So you notice photographers a lot moving around, and that's so that we can get that unobstructed background behind our subject so that we can blow it out of focus. So this using probably about an f4, and you notice that even her little earlobes are out of focus. So f4's got a pretty shallow depth of field in this case. And here, the same thing. She's on a swing, she's in a garden, but you don't need to look at the swing. You don't need to look at the garden. It's not a commercial for a swing. It's not a commercial for a garden. 20 years from now, you want that picture of that kid, and you don't want anything to interfere with looking at that kid. So this, once again, is using that 4 or that 5.6, and then just focusing in on that child so that we can blow that background out. But we as a photographer choose where we put the subject so that we've got that 8, 10, 15, 20 feet away from the background so that we can blow it out of focus. So that's our f-stops. So if you use an f2.8, or if you use an f22, or if you use a 2.8, or If you use a 22, this is your artistry and how you're designing your photograph. How much do you want your viewer to see, and how much do you want your viewer not to see? They each have their own purpose. They each have their own place. And so many times I do both. So whether we're using a 4 or whether we're using a 22, it all depends on what you want your photograph to look like. This is my crystal ball, by the way. I love photographing through a crystal ball. It's a lot of fun to photograph with a crystal ball, and it just creates something totally different with when you're photographing with it. So your f-stop controls how much we let the viewer see and how much we let the viewer not see. So if we're doing like the entire room, plus we want everything outside to be in focus, then that would be an f22. So your f-stop determines how much we want the viewer to see and how much we want the viewer not to see. So your f-stop, would you put your camera on f5.6? Okay, you on 5.6? Yes, super. Okay, very good. Now roll the dial or twist the dial in Mary's case. Roll your dial for your f-stops. And remember, Lori, you're pushing the plus minus button and rolling the dial at the same time. Roll your dial for your f-stops. And what's the smallest f-stop you can get?
Mine's 2.4.
Pardon, Mary?
2.4.
2.4? Good.
3.5.
3.5? Paula?
4.0.
4.0? Good. Lori?
1.8.
1.8. Okay, good. This is all dependent on your lens. So when you change the lens or when you add another lens, and I don't want you to do that right now, you would have a lower small number. Now, what's the biggest number you can get?
Mine's 16.
16. Okay.
5.6.
Bigger. How big? Bigger number. Got to be able to get bigger than that, Angie.
Okay.
Paula?
22.
22. Good. Lori, Angie?
I'm 22.
22.
Right now.
Okay.
I have a like a close-up lens on, so
Yeah, that's okay.
It really is 5.6.
Rotate it the other direction.
Yeah.
The dial the other direction.
Yep.
And what was your smallest f-stop?
3.5.
3.5 to 5.6. What kind of lens do you have on there? You would have to have a really wonky lens.
It's what it came with it.
Oh, okay. So it's not a wonky lens.
But it probably is wonky.
No. You would have to have a really weird lens if that was all that it did. Okay. Now, zoom your lens. So, Lori, your lens doesn't have a zoom, right? No. It just has focus on it. But Mary and Paula, everybody else has got. So when you zoom your lens, what's the new biggest or smallest number you can get?
Mine doesn't really work that way because it's on the.
Okay, so yours is what's called a fixed f-stop lens. So that means no matter where you zoom it, you always have that small number and that big number.
Yeah.
So that's what yours is called. Yours is called fixed f-stop. Paula?
My end didn't change either. I still
Yours
go from 4 to 22.
To 22. Now, when you zoom, can you get to like a 3.5 or anything like that?
I don't think so.
No, still goes to 4.
Still goes to
Okay.
4.
So yours is a fixed f-stop lens as well. So no matter where we zoom through it, we can always go 4 to 22. Angie, what'd you find on that lens?
It's now I'm lost.
That's okay. That's okay. Does your lens zoom?
It does. So, and that's the zooming is what's changing that f-stop.
Yes.
Just the,
Yes.
yeah, just a 3.5 and then to a 5.6. Now, if I change it, it did come with
Super.
a longer lens.
No, stay right there. So go
Okay.
back to 3.5,
Okay.
go back to 3.5 and zoom back. I'm sorry, zoom back.
Mhm.
Okay. Now rotate your f-stop dial and you should be able to go to 22. Don't zoom that lens in and out. Quit zooming with your hand.
Okay.
And now that should go to 22 when you're at 3.5.
Mm-mm.
Rotate the dial the other direction. And you do have 2 dials on the top of your camera, right, Angie?
No, actually, it's just the one
Aha,
where the
thank
right
you.
hand is. There we
Okay,
are.
push the plus minus button with your forefinger.
Plus minus button.
See up on top? Right up by your shutter
Oh, yeah,
button.
yeah, yeah, duh. Okay.
Yeah, push that plus minus button with your forefinger and then with your thumb, rotate the dial, and that's going to change your f-stop.
Okay.
You're like Lori, you have to push and hold a button and rotate a dial to change your f-stop.
6, there we go. Oh,
Yay.
wow, look at this.
Yay! Yay!
36 is the highest number.
Super. Okay, very good. Very good. And then if you zoom back, your highest number goes to what?
22.
22. Good, good, good. Okay. So your f-stops are dependent on your lens. And Laura, you can still use that small lens if you want to. It's perfectly fine. You don't have to put on that bigger lens. It just
I'll
gets a
just
little,
play with it.
yeah, it just gets a little weighty as we're working today. So you see that each one of these lenses comes with a set number of f-stops in it. You have fixed f-stops like Mary and Paula's lenses. You have a variable f-stop like Angie's. That variable f-stop lens, Angie, that you have, and Lori, you might have some that are like this too. The variable f-stop lenses will be lighter and less expensive than a fixed f-stop lens. So Paula, for instance, point at the camera, that lens that you were just using, point the objective lens. Yeah, just point it right at the camera. Yeah, you see how big that opening is on that? That means that that's a heavy lens. So the bigger the opening is, you can put it down now, thanks. The bigger the opening is, the heavier the lens is going to be. And also the more expensive a lens is going to be. So these variable f-stop lenses allow us to have a lighter, less expensive lens, which is great for things like hiking, backpacking, travel, that type stuff. So variable f-stop lenses give us one option, and then fixed f-stop lenses give us another option. So those f-stops that change, those are the variable f-stop lenses. And then Lori, you had one of those teeny weeny little lenses on your camera, right? One of that 50 millimeter. Yeah. So those lenses, yeah, see, little teeny weeny lenses. Those lenses are kind of nice, have an artistic point of view. I used one to photograph my cat's socks here. Instead of it having a 2.8 f-stop, it had a 1.4 f-stop. So 2.8, 1.8, 1.4, even less depth of field than at 2.8. And this picture that I took of Socks, where his little nose and his little eye, he's not a big cat, he's a rather small cat. But this picture where I took his nose and his eye in focus, I had to get them exactly lined up in the right plane so that they were in focus. It took me about 50 pictures.
Wow.
Because when the depth of field is that tiny, you have to be precise with it. But the reason that some people use this lens is because the background is just super creamy. So that background is absolutely beautiful with that lens, but trying to get it exactly where it needs to be in focus is okay for Instagram because you don't look at a picture that close. It's not okay if it's the mother-in-law realizing she's out of focus in all the wedding pictures. Okay, so that's when you got to watch it with that lens. It's got a good artistic side to it, but some people don't know that we really should be shooting this at 5.6 and 8, not necessarily at the 2.8 or the 1.8. Laura, yours went to 1.8, right?
Yeah. My friend
Yeah.
said she got it for like taking pictures of rings at weddings and like the
Yeah. But you
engagement
know,
rings
you
and
would
things
you
like
would
that.
never shoot it at 1.8. So you would still shoot it at something like, for the rings, 5.6, 6.8.
Okay.
But it gives you the ability to make that background even softer. So
Okay.
it just has a beautiful background to it, but you
Yeah.
would never shoot it at that 1.8 unless you really knew what you were doing.
Okay.
So now you see your f-stops and the f-stops that you have on your lenses. So if you look at this shot, what's my f-stop? What do you think my f-stop is? Because we can see everything.
Mhm.
You have 32. We'll say
32, go for it. Yes,
Okay.
just
Yeah,
go for it.
32.
And that's the way that I shoot. If I'm going to go down and I'm going to do a landscape like this, I'm going to put the camera on the tripod and I'm going to set the f-stop to f22 or 32. Yes, that's the way I shoot. So if you're going to try to show the viewer everything in the entire scene, then that's when we're going to put that lens on f22 or 32, whatever the maximum f-stop that you can go to. And then you now see in this photograph, if you look all the way back, you can see the leaves and the vines and everything looking up that river in Costa Rica. But that motion of that river looks different, right? So we're back to that artistry, to making things look different than what they do in real life. So that motion blur of that water comes through shutter speed. So let's go back to that chart you just made. So when we are balancing our light meter, we set the f-stop, or we set one of the numbers. And in this example of the river, I know that I'm going to set my f-stop at 32. So set the camera up on the tripod, get my image composed like I want it to be. And now I know that I've got to start somewhere. So I'm going to set my f-stop at 32 because I'm going to do that landscape. When I set my f-stop at 32 and then start looking through the viewfinder, push the button halfway down on the shutter to turn everything on. And now I'm going to put the scale right in the middle. So when I start rotating the shutter speed dial, the second dial, when I start rotating the shutter speed dial, I will find for my f32 one shutter speed that puts my light meter right in the middle. So once you choose one number, there will be one number that makes your light meter balance right in the middle. And now your brain has to decide whether that's the right number or not. So before we go back to this, let's look at shutter speeds. So put your camera back in your hand and put your f-stop back at 5.6. So rotate that f-stop back to 5.6, right? 5.6?
Yes.
Yay! Okay. So 5.6. Now what I want you to do is I want you to point the camera at something that's lit up in your room. So like a lamp or a bright area, something like that. Not super, super bright, but just maybe something underneath a lamp, as opposed to actually at the lamp right now. Point your camera at that. And now I want you to rotate, because you're already at 5.6, right? Everybody's at 5.6? Okay. So everybody's at 5.6. Now I want you to rotate Paula and Mary the other dial. That's your shutter speed dial. Angie and Lori, it's rotate the dial without holding down the plus minus button. So don't put your thumb on it, Lori, and Angie, don't put your finger on it. Now just rotate your dial and rotate the dial until the scale goes right in the middle. And then when you get the dial right in the middle, when you get the scale right in the middle, tell me what shutter speed balanced the light meter.
So for me, it was 1.3.
1.3, good. Take the picture. When you just yell it out so I can hear you. 1.3?
Yep.
1/8.
1/8. Good. Take the picture. Angie, Lori?
I don't think I'm doing it right.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
either.
So you see that Mary and Paula have got it down around the 1 point something. They're at like a third or something like that. Lori, rotate your dial until you get down to about a third. Angie, what's yours doing? Is it still hanging in the middle?
Yes, it's directly in the center.
It's directly in the center.
And a 0. Yeah. Well, yeah, there's a scale.
And it's
It's
not moving at all, no matter
at
how
all.
much you move the shutter speed.
No,
So
ma'am.
your ISO, what's your ISO at?
200.
It's not blinking with an auto ISO
No, I got that to turn off.
that you turned that off.
Yes.
So on the back of the camera, is there anything that's indicating to you why? And you're in the manual mode, right? Up on top,
Yes, ma'am.
the M,
Yes, ma'am.
your autofocus is turned on, but your M on top.
I'm M on top. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Turn your camera around so I can maybe see it on the screen, Angie. Oops, it's blurred. Oops.
Yep.
Oops.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Let me see. I can get that off.
Yeah. And Lori, what's yours balancing at? Is yours balancing?
I think so. Am I looking at like the 3.2.1 like that?
Yeah.
Okay, I got it under the 0.
Right in the 0, take the picture. Good, 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 good. Okay, let me see. No, it's 2.
shutter-
Oh, wait. Bring that around to me again, Angie. Okay.
Oh.
Look underneath between the big dial, the big circle on the left and the big circle in the middle. You see how that light meter scale that's going down there is way
Yes.
off to one side. You see that?
Okay.
So that's the same thing that's through your viewfinder. So it could be that you're not seeing the little dots underneath the viewfinder. I mean, underneath the light meter scale. Try balancing it just looking at the back there. Just rotate the dial and you'll see that you can do it just looking at the back. So that's the exact same thing you've got going on inside. Paula, Mary, and Lori point the camera at different things throughout the room and take the exact same picture using 5.6, but only changing the shutter speed. Is it working on the back, Angie?
No, I'm having to go into a menu.
No. Okay. You don't have to go to a menu.
Okay.
Push the plus minus button up on top.
Yes, ma'am.
Just hold it. Now,
Yep.
what number showed up next to your plus minus button?
3.1.
3.1. Rotate your dial until that plus minus button becomes 0.0.
No, I'm not doing something right. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. For you, for Angie and Lori, that plus minus button, if you're not careful, you can dial in a permanent underexposure or overexposure. And so that should always be zeroed out to 0, 0. So if you push it for any other reason other than your f-stop, it could give you an underexposure or an overexposure.
Okay.
So did that go to back to 0, 0, Angie?
No, ma'am.
No? Okay. Okay.
No, I'm gonna have to play with it.
We're going to have to work with it then. Okay.
ma'am.
So Paula, Mary, and Lori, pull your picture up on the back of the camera. When you pull that picture up on the back of the camera, it's the little blue rectangle, a rectangle with an arrow in the middle of it. Does the picture look like it does in your room? Yay.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah? I mean,
it's
not
not in
great.
focus.
It's not great. Yeah. But does it look like it does in your room?
Yeah, like there's
Oh.
a shadow. The walls are kind of creamy colored.
Okay. Good, good, good. Congratulations. You balanced your light meter. So that's what that means, that you balanced your light meter. So when the picture looks like it does in real life, then that's when you balance your light meter and your camera is functioning like it should. We got to figure out how to get Angie's to work like it should. Yeah. What do you think, Angie?
I've got my manual here. I just need to figure out how to get to maneuver around it, I guess.
That's okay. That's okay. Just keep paying attention, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Because we'll get you there, and you can always figure it out during the homework assignments, okay?
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Okay. So going back, so now you have balanced your light meter. Looking at the chart on the screen, same as I gave you an f-stop, just like I was talking about in that photograph that I took. I gave it an f-stop, and then I needed to find a shutter speed that put the scale right in the middle. There's only, when you use one f-stop, there's only one shutter speed that'll make the light meter balance. So you don't have two options. There's only one that'll make the light meter balanced. So in the case of the photograph before, I chose f32. And then when I'm sitting out in the field and I see f32 and 1/8 of a second shutter speed, what's it mean if I've got 1/8 of a second shutter speed? And if you look at your chart on the first page of your handout, 1/8 of a second shutter speed always makes silky water. So if you want to blur water, no matter how much turbulence the water has, little or most, water always starts to blur at 1/8 of a second. So when I'm looking through my viewfinder and I see f32 at 1/8 of a second, for that moment in time, in your room right now, you could not do f32 at 1/8 of a second because that's not the same light I had. So at that moment in time, with that light, I was able to get f32 at 1/8 of a second. And when I did that, brain kicks in. What's going to happen at f32? I'm going to see everything in the scene. What's going to happen at 1/8 of a second? The water's going to blur. Bingo, exactly what I was looking for with that photograph, because that's what I had gone to try to achieve. Now, Paula, your lens only goes to f22, right?
That's right.
So let's say that Paula's standing next to me and she's looking at the exact same scene, and let's say we've framed it up exactly right together. When she balances her light meter, she's only going to have f22. So she balanced her light meter using f22. She's only going to be able to get a 15th of a second. Why? Because her aperture opening is bigger than mine. Mine's smaller, so I can get a slower shutter speed. So Paula's going to say, wait a second, I came all the way to Costa Rica with you and I can't blur the water like I want to? No, she's got to wait about 15 minutes for the sun to go down a little bit. And then she'll be able to get f22 at 1/8 of a second. I'll then be at f32 at 1/4 of a second. So there's always a place where you can balance your light meter. Whether the numbers are what you're looking for to create the photo that you want is a whole other story. Also, maybe I'm not talking to photographers or showing photographers my photos. Maybe I'm showing my photos to anglers, to trout fishermen, people who go to that river to fish for trout, because it's a very famous trout fishing stream in Costa Rica. They don't care about blurred water. They want to see turbulence. They want to see rapids. They want to see water where the fish are going to be. So if I move my f-stop to 16, I can go to a 30th of a second. And if I move my f-stop to 11, I can go to 60th of a second. And if I move my f-stop to 8, I can go to a 1/25th of a second. The more I move away from 1/8 of a second shutter speed, the faster my water is going to be. And then I can go to 6.8 at 250, and I can go to 5.6 at 500. So there's a variety of places where I can balance my light meter, and notice that it's a straight line graph, meaning that's the same amount of light for each one of those. So there's a variety of places where I can balance my light meter, but what the picture looks like is up to me to determine which one of those is the one that I'm actually going to take. So shutter speed stops motion. F-stop controls how much I let the viewer see and how much I let the viewer not see. So if I want to stop motion, I need 500,000 to 2,000. If I want to blur motion on your handout, then we're going to be able to blur it from 1/8 of a second slower. So your shutter speed stops motion and your shutter speed blurs motion, but I can balance my light meter in a variety of different places, all forming a straight line graph. And all of the pictures are going to be the same amount of light. So holding your camera in your hands. Now, Paula and Mary, you all are going to use your other dial because we were using our shutter speed dial. We used our shutter speed dial just now, right? And Angie and Lori, you all are just using your main control dial. Lori, it's in the back. Lori, it's in the front. Angie, it's in the back. Okay. When you rotate just your shutter speed dial, what's the fastest shutter speed you can get? So Lori and Angie, it's just your dial. And then Mary and Paula, it's the dial we weren't using for f-stop. When you rotate your shutter speed dial, what's the fastest shutter speed you can get?
30, is that a right number?
Fastest. 30
Oh,
is a
so-
long time. What's the
Okay.
fastest? Huh?
4,000? Does that sound right?
4,000. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's mine also.
Angie, 4,000.
4,000.
Good. Paula, what'd you get?
8,000.
8,000. Exactly. Exactly. Mary, what'd you get?
32,000?
32,000, 3,200 or 32,000?
32,000 has.
32,000. Okay. And 32,000 for yours, Mary, is moving you past the shutter opening and closing, and it's doing some electronic stuff. So that's what that 32,000 is on yours.
Okay.
So usually, Angie and Lori, it's about 4,000. And then Paula, you've got a little step above that, and that's that 8,000. And I suspect, Mary, on yours, that your mechanical shutter would be at either between 4,000 or 8,000 also. Yeah. And then rotate your shutter speed dial now. And once again, this all depends on the model of camera because shutter is in the camera. Lens has f-stop. Shutter is in the camera. So rotate your shutter speed. And when is the point where you get 2 quotation marks? Rotate your shutter speed. And what's the first time you see 2 quotation marks?
1.
Good. 1.
Mine's 0.4.
0.4, 0, is it 0.4, Mary?
Yeah, 0.4.
Okay, good. Paula, Lori?
0.3.
0.3, good.
0.4.
0.4, 0.4. Anytime you see quotation marks is when we're starting to get into the slower shutter speeds. The 0.3, the 0.4, that's 1/4 of a second. And Paula, Mary, and Lori, you will notice that you have 1/4 of a second, 0.4 or 0.3, but you also have a 4, Paula and Mary. Lori, you also have a 3, which is 1/3 of a second. So you've got 1/3 of a second, and then you've got a 0.3. They're the same thing. Don't worry about it. It's just that crossover between decimals and fractions. So everything without a quotation mark on it is a fraction. So when you're seeing 4, it's 1/4 of a second. When you're seeing 8, it's 1/8 of a second. But once you get to the quotation marks, that's when we're actually into seconds, or Paula, Mary, and Lori, we're in fractions of seconds. When you get your first whole number, Angie, it's 1 on your camera.
Yes,
When's
ma'am.
your first whole number, everybody else?
4.
A
Well,
fourth-
with quotation marks. Is that
4
fine?
with quotation marks. You don't have 2 on your camera, Lori?
Oh, yeah, I
Yeah.
do. It's a
Okay,
two.
you've got 2 on yours.
I went 2 and a 2.5, so I scrolled right past
Yeah,
it. and
yeah,
then I
yeah.
looked at these.
Paula and Mary,
Well, I have a
Oh,
one
no,
with
mine's one.
quotes.
you have a 1 with quotation marks. Good. So you got
Yeah.
1 second. And then Paula,
I have 1 in quotation marks.
1 in quotation marks. Good. So that's your first full time that you get into seconds. So 1s and the 2s. And then if you keep rotating in that same direction, you'll find that you eventually get to 30. Don't rotate past 30 because there's all kinds of proprietary stuff after that. But you see how you get to 30 with quotation marks? Okay, so that's literally 30 seconds, which you have no idea how long 30 seconds is until you have to sit there and wait for your camera to finish. That's a long time. Yeah. So Mary, does yours go to 30?
Yep.
Yep. Paula?
Yes.
Good. So where we maybe won't use 4,000 and 8,000 very much, there's some great stuff we can do with those slower shutter speeds. And you see how many shutter speeds you have throughout that entire range. So that's why on your handout, I have given you 5 benchmark shutter speeds. So just so you can kind of jump in there and get an idea of how fast of a shutter speed you should use, I've given you 5. So the first one is that water blurs at 1/8 of a second. So anytime you want to take a picture of water blurring in a river, an ocean, anything where water's flowing, then your shutter speed needs to start out at 1/8 of a second. So you can just go ahead and dial in 1/8 of a second. And then to balance your light meter, you can dial in your f-stop that'll put the light meter right in the middle. So water always blurs at 1/8 of a second. Rain blurs at 1/8 of a second. I suspect snow would, even though I haven't worked too much on snow. Oceans do, rivers do. Water always blurs at 1/8 of a second. So in this photo that I'm showing you on the screen, if I want the water in the river to blur, then that's when I got the f32 and the 1/8 of a second, just because the light happened to be perfect at that opportunity, at that moment, to give me what I wanted. But if I didn't want to show that blurry water, if I wanted to show, if I wanted to show more turbulent water, then that would be my 1/25 of a second. But you notice between the 2 photographs, 1/25 of a second, watch for just a second. Whoops, I'm sorry. The 1/25 of a second, and then the 1/8 of a second, you see how the light is exactly the same? You see, the only thing that's changing is the movement of the water. The light's exactly the same because I balanced my light meter every single time. So one of the homework assignments you're going to do is you're going to play with your water faucet or your water hose or a fountain if there's one near your house, and you're going to keep your camera steady and you're going to change that shutter speed and the f-stop to keep the light meter in balance. And you're going to watch the water be turbulent or the water be blurry. And if you do it right, all of the pictures will have exactly the same light. Yeah, Paula.
So when I took a picture of something in my room, I started, with a certain f-stop, and I balanced the light meter by manipulating the shutter speed.
Correct.
So in this case, you're doing it the opposite way, where you're picking your shutter speed and you're manipulating your f-stop to get a photo.
If you have movement in the scene that you want to stop, the first thing that's important is the shutter speed. If you don't have any movement in the scene and there's nothing that's moving that's important that you stop at, then your f-stop can be the first thing that you use. But if there's movement in your scene, then you would always start with your shutter speed to make sure that you stop or blur your movement.
So for a bird,
Bird,
go at
your shutter speed's going to be the most important thing. Exactly. Yes. Yes. So if we're photographing the kids playing soccer, your shutter speed's going to be the most dominant thing. But we've always got to balance the light meter to make sure that the photo comes out with the proper amount of light. The exposure's got to be right. But if we're working on birds, that shutter is going to become the most dominant thing. Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So
Yeah.
shutter speed stops movement. F-stop controls how much we see and we don't see in the scene. Mary, did you have a question?
Oh, back to Paula's comment on the birds. I was kind of thinking that my f-stop, because you do a bird and you have all the leaves and you don't care about them. So I would think that you would be doing, a 2.8 for the f-stop on a bird, but actually you have to figure out shutter speed, and then it's the lowest f-stop that balances your light.
Right,
Okay.
right, right. And then you would never use a 2.8 because once again, 2.8 is two things in focus. So most of your bird's going to be out of focus.
Oh, so that would be like the beak and the eye in focus.
Uh-huh, you got it.
Okay, okay.
You got it.
So a bird would still be 8 because that's the most
Not
common?
8
or-
necessarily, but your bird would still be in that 5.6, 6.8, or 8 range. Yes, yes. Yeah, so we've still got to take into account the depth of field. So it's a delicate balance that we're doing as photographers. Yes, yes, very delicate. But you want the exposure to be right so that we get the light to be right. That's what's the most important thing. So balancing that light meter. So in this scene, you see that we're seeing all the way down at the end. So we're seeing everything to the end. You don't know what shutter speed I used. You don't know what f-stop I used, but you can see that the water's blurred. So what shutter speed does that tell you that I'm using?
1.8. I mean, 1/8.
An eighth of a second
1/8, sorry.
or slower.
Yeah.
So you don't know whether I'm at an eighth or a fourth or 1 or 2, but you do know that I'm at an eighth of a second or slower. And then you see also that the people are blurring. You see that?
Oh, yeah.
So the people are blurring. So that's telling you also that I'm using a slow shutter speed. Camera's on a tripod, so we've got everything else stable. You see the guy with the white bag there? So he's kind of stayed a little bit still in front of that window. So we see him a little bit more solid. People going over the bridge, they're kind of solid, but not quite. But this person right over here, definitely not solid. So we call it ghost photography a lot of times because if we use a long enough shutter speed, everybody disappears off a busy street. So it's a great way to get rid of crowds sometimes. But if we speed up the shutter speed, you can see the gondolas because the gondola is just floating along very gently. And if we don't have a fast enough shutter speed, we don't see the gondolas. They become ghosts as well. Notice the man with the white bag. It's the same scene, but because I didn't have a fast enough shutter speed, the gondolas just floated right on by and didn't make any impression whatsoever. So we've got to have a fast enough shutter speed to stop the motion or blur the motion, depending on what we're trying to do. So if you're not careful, things will disappear on you if you don't use a fast enough shutter speed. The gondolas are there, but just simply because they're not moving fast enough, they've just blurred out. Cool, isn't it? So it's a neat way to get rid of people when we need to. Yeah. Yes, Paula.
So you slowed the shutter speed and that's what blurred it and removed the people?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So this shutter speed would have probably been eighth of a second, but I'd say probably more like maybe 10 seconds or something like that, because the gondolas went away pretty well. But a gondola is not going very fast. And so there was nothing that ever stopped to make it have an impression. And so if you don't use a fast enough shutter speed, we're not going to see the gondolas. So shutter speed stops motion or blurs motion. F-stop controls how much we see and how much we don't see. So on your handout, the shutter speeds that you would use as benchmarks, because you've got so many to choose from. So let's just put 5 benchmarks in your head. 1/8 of a second blurs water. 15th of a second is what I need if I have gentle movement. So I want to do the red buds. I looked through the viewfinder. I got the camera on a tripod. I'm going to do this really, nice controlled shot. And when I look at the red bud limb, it's just ever so slightly moving. So where I was going to lead with my f-stop, now that I've got movement, I have to lead with my shutter speed. So when I have gentle movement, 15th of a second is going to be my bottom shutter speed that I can use. So gentle movement, 15th of a second is going to stop that if the camera's on a tripod. 60th of a second is what I need for a living creature, breathing, respirating, blinking their eyes, moving their head ever so gently. Paula, a bird just staring at you. So that would be my 60th of a second. So here with Sox Cat, just looking right at me, that would be my 60th of a second. First number I dial in is 60. Next number I dial in is my f-stop to put the scale right in the middle. Notice also his eyes are in tight, sharp focus. So our focus point always has to be on the eyes. If the eyes are not in focus, it drives us crazy. Humans have to have the eyes in focus. If we don't have the eyes in focus, cat, bird, frog, horse, grandmother, granddaddy, it drives us crazy. So Paula, you've got eye focus on your camera, so it'll automatically look for it. Mary, do you have eye focus on your camera?
No, the model after mine does.
Oh, the
I
model
don't.
after yours. Okay, so Mary,
Yeah.
you're going to be in with Angie and Lori. Okay, Angie and Lori, you all need to know how to move your focus points around. So we're going to use one individual focus point and we're going to move it around. And in this case, camera's vertical, move the focus point up to his eyes, dial in the shutter speed, dial in the f-stop, shutter speed first because he's moving, and then take the picture. If we keep all the focus points activated, it's not going to choose his eye. It's going to choose probably the center of his chest. So your eye focus, Angie on your camera, see this little icon right here? We need to activate that icon, rotate your front dial to where it only becomes one square. And you might have to go hunting for how to do this.
Yeah.
And
I see
then,
what you're talking about, but yes.
yes, and then you can use that toggle on the back of your camera to move your focus points around, because you should have about 9 or 10 of them when you look through the viewfinder,
Yes.
right? And then activating that down at the base of your lens, do you have a little teeny, on that side that you're looking, do you have a little teeny black button with A and S on it? No?
On the back.
Uh-huh. No,
Camera?
no, on the front of the camera at the base of the lens. Do you have a little?
No.
No. Okay. That would be the way I would find it. But you want to be able to activate this icon right here.
Yes,
Oh,
ma'am.
it's on the back. It's on one of your back buttons on the back.
Okay.
Lori, your button is right here. See this one? Little square. It's at the top right hand of your back of the camera. You see that?
Okay, yeah.
Mash
Mine's like
that.
red.
Mash that with your thumb, hold it down with your thumb, and then rotate your front dial. It's way over at the topmost right-hand button. And then rotate your front dial and you'll see that now your focus points are going around in that little pattern. You see that? Yeah. Yeah. And then Mary, yours is very similar to that. It's one of the icons on that menu that you had on the back.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks kind of like this icon right here. And then
So
you're going to move yours around as well. So you
that's
might,
the focus area, right?
yeah.
And
So you
want
might
focus-
need to go read the manual on that one.
So focus area expand flexible spot. Is that the one you want?
You're going to go flexible spot. Yes. Yes. And then that way you can move it and probably move it around with your joystick as well.
Yep.
Okay. So all three of you all, this is how you're going to set your focus point, and you're going to move it to the animal's eye, bird's eye, kid's eye, or to, like those wine glasses I was doing, to the wine glass that you want to be your focus point. So that's the ability to move those around. And Angie, if you can't find that, I'll research it for you. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Question?
Oh, I always did flexible spot, but then I also did small. I can do small, medium, and large flexible spot.
Mhm,
And I always,
exactly.
for birds, I do flexible spot, small.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds about right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sounds about right. But we need to be able to put that focus point where we want it to be. So in this case with this lion, she was lying in the grass, and the guide said, watch, because when she hears the male, she's going to raise her head up. She's going to look around. She's going to leave. So you only have one shot. And lo and behold, I was using a camera like Lori and Angie have, and I put the focus point up here on the top. Her head's in the grass. I don't even see her face yet. But then when she raised her head up, I just kept that spot down on that eye and then fired away and got the shot. So Paula, you would do it with eye detect or face detect, which just allows us now to have the camera automatically detect those eyes. Have you played with that, Paula, on your camera?
No, not really.
Yeah, it's a good feature. It's a very, very good feature. Definitely nice. So moving that focus point around. So in this case, putting it up at the top of the frame allows us to once again have our photos look better, have our photos look more interesting. Not having the autofocus get stuck by his hand allows us to create something that's different. This is post-processed in a software called Nik, N-I-K, that allows me to make pictures look like old-time pictures and different types of special effects. So it's an interesting software to process with. So keeping that focus point on the eyes, 60th of a second if the subject is just looking at us. Subjects on the horse or subjects on the swing, little kid on the swing, not a big kid, little kid on the swing, 250th of a second. So if we've got like the little guy on the swing, set the shutter speed to 250th of a second, set the f-stop accordingly, and then we can just fire away. And you notice in this situation, I've got him on the playground where the background is definitely more than 8, 10, 15 feet away. And that allows me to blow out that background. So the only thing you're doing is looking at the picture of the kid. So shutter speed stops movement. In this case, with the blue-gray tanager in Costa Rica, I put that focus point over to the side when the blue-gray tanager leans down to get the food out of the fruit feeder. That gives me the chance to throw that area out of focus, gives me a chance to show this bird in a little bit different light than what it would normally be. So that ability to move those focus points around is a really important feature. So Mary, Angie, and Laura, you all have to do this with your fingers, and you got to get fast at it. And then Paula, you've got that added capabilities of the new mirrorless cameras that it'll go over there and find that eye. So it makes it nice. And then 500th of a second, 500th of a second stops balls of water. 500th of a second stops water when it splashes. So in this case with the whale, when it's fluking, if I know that I want to definitely just freeze all of that water, then I need to make sure I've got a shutter speed at 500th of a second or higher. When I did the whales in Alaska a couple of times this year, I was easily going into the 4,000 and 8,000 to stop them as they were breaching and stop them as they were fluking and that type of thing. But if you want that water to ever be frozen, that's 500th of a second or faster. So if we're working on splashes, students swimming, diving, where we've got splashes going on, birds that are bathing in the water and you want that splash, then I need to go at least a 500th of a second, but it's better if I can go 1,000, 2,000, or 4,000, depending on how much water we've got. So that gives you 5 shutter speeds, kind of an idea that we can use depending on what our subject is doing, because we just want that shutter speed to be what we need, but not excessively high than what we don't need. Okay. Questions on shutter speeds?
If I wanted to try to capture my dogs like running towards me, would that be 500? So
Probably about 500th of a second.
okay,
Yes. Yes.
I've
What
They
been
if
would.
it's
trying to
like
do
a-
that, and they're just little blurry balls.
Yeah. They would make, that would be a nice subject, in fact, for your homework. So now you get to try it. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
What about like a hummingbird, you know, because they're so fast? Is that
They're
something
so
that's taking it
fast.
even higher?
Yes.
Because I have
We're
a
not-
million of them when it's time.
Yeah, we're never going to freeze their wings without using multiple flashes. So the only way we could freeze their wings, even if we went to 8,000, we're not going to totally freeze their wings unless we get lucky. Sometimes we get lucky. So to do those whole totally frozen, you know, tail in the air hummingbird photos, we have to use lights for that. We have to
Okay.
use flashes.
Okay.
But with a hummingbird in flight, 500 to 1,000 to 3,000 to 4,000 gets us pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Any other questions on shutter speeds? Good. Okay. So when we are rotating and trying to get our light meter to balance, we might find that we don't have enough light to get 4,000th of a second on that hummingbird, even though we want to. So our secret weapon is ISO. So ISO is how fast the sensor records light. So I've got you all now on ISO 100, except Angie, you're on ISO 200. And that's the base rate, the baseline for your camera. Sony and Canon's are 100, Nikon's 200. Nikon's going to take its best picture when you're at ISO 200. Sony, Canon, they're going to take their best picture when you're at ISO 100. So right now I have you set at ISO 100. The higher we move away from ISO 100, the grainier our photos are going to get. But if we want to balance the light meter and we can't get a fast enough shutter speed, if we punch the ISO button and rotate the ISO is going to give us allow us to get a faster shutter speed. Don't do it now, okay? I want you to stay where you are. But the higher I raise my ISO, the worse my photo looks. So this photograph of us out in the Sahara Desert, we were doing some nighttime Milky Way star photography out in the Morocco Sahara Desert. And the guys we were sleeping in these tents, and the guys had made this, you know, fire for us and they'd fed us. And now they were playing their drums while we're waiting for the sky to get dark enough. I'm going to photograph this. I am not going to sit there and say, wow, I wish I could photograph this. No, I've got a camera. I'm going to go for it. So I know that to stop that drumming, I'm going to have a pretty fast shutter speed, but to go too high, I'm going to ruin the photograph. So I got my shutter speed in this case up to about 1,000, and that allowed me to stop the guys as they're swaying. But you see that I still got some hands that were blurred. But the fire looks good. The carpets look good. Don't feel sorry for me. There's a flush toilet in that tower back there. Okay, so I'm not totally roughing it. But, you know, it comes out looking pretty good. But that's because it's an ISO of about 3,200, 3,500. So instead of being a baseline 100 or 200, it's in the 3,000s. And if you blow this picture up, that's the noise. So the noise are those little grains, that little pixelation that we're seeing in our photographs. We can take this now into software and get rid of the noise, do noise reduction. This is older software, and you can see that I can get rid of the noise pretty good. Adobe this year gave us some AI software, and it's really good. But because my shutter speed wasn't fast enough, I can never recover those hands. So that's always going to be blurry. but I can take that picture from not looking too good and I can make it look better if I use software for the high ISO. I'm not shying away from high ISO anymore, but I'm also using the top of the line Canon cameras, and I'm using the latest products that Canon puts out. How high of ISO you can tolerate depends on you. So I've got one toleration for it. You've got another one. If I want the photo, I'm going to raise my ISO all the way to the top, and my ISO will go to 25,500 now. But if I want that photo, I'm going to use the highest ISO I can get to get the shutter speed I need and the f-stop I need. So this, for instance, is a Jaguar. Yeah, Paula.
Is that because it's dark? Is that why you have to
Not
increase the
necessarily.
ISO?
So this Jaguar down in Brazil, this is in the Pantanal, and you'll see me advertise trips to the Pantanal. This is the place where you can get the most Jaguars in the world. But the Jaguar is walking in the shadows. He's on the riverbank. We're in the boat. So we're in the boat. I've got 8 or 10 people in the boat. All of us are photographers. So the boat's moving because we're all trying to get to get our photo of our Jaguar. The boatman in the back is trying to keep everything steady, but he's trying to keep us, up with the Jaguar. So there's a lot of movement going on. So just the Jaguar walking is 2,000 to 2,500 shutter speed. But to stop that whole movement of the boat, I need my 4,000 or my 8,000 shutter speed. So this means I've got to raise my ISO even higher. So it's because it's in the shadows. It's because there's a lot of movement going on. It's because I'm trying to get the highest shutter speed I can get. But you know what? This is one of the highest shutter speeds, and it looks pretty darn good. So for me, I'll take it, but I know what my camera will do. How high your ISO looks is your personal tolerance. If there's a photo that I absolutely want, like on this same shoot, we were coming home in the dark in the motorboat, and the boatman happened to see 2 Jaguar cubs sitting on the bank, and we stopped the boat, backed up. The Jaguar cubs are still sitting on the bank. They were adolescents. And we took a flashlight and lit the Jaguar cubs up, and everybody took pictures. I'm going to take my ISO as high as I want to on that one because I'm going to get the photo. And that's the beautiful thing right now is on all the cameras, we have pretty high ISO. So we can shoot under conditions we used to not be able to shoot in. How high that ISO is and what it looks like on your camera, it's all based on your camera. And then if you want to use the AI technology that we've got in the Adobe products, it's going to do pretty good. It also depends on how close you're looking and how big you're going to blow this up. But sometimes if I want the picture, I want the picture. So that's what ISO is. So I don't recommend that you keep your ISO at its highest. Keep your ISO as low as you can and only raise it when you need to. So make it a conscious choice as opposed to just giving it into free. When I'm shooting a lot of birds, Paula and Mary, you all do bird photography as well. I'm doing a lot of action. Then I'll shoot on auto ISO, but I have another class for that where I can explain that. Okay. So it's there, possible. So when the old days, under lighting conditions like this, we used to have to use tripods. We used to have to use low ISO and tripods. And now we went to this cologne shop in Florence recently, and I just told my photographers, raise your ISO, make sure you get your shutter speed at least at 60th of a second. Don't go higher if you don't need to. And we could walk around and photograph without tripods and just have a good time at it. So now when we need to, like these kids, I just put the camera on the table, flipped out the viewing screen, turned it to live view so that I could look at it on the back of the screen. If I picked my camera up, the kids would have known what was going on. Used my high ISO, put those focus points right on the kids' eyes, photographed away. So that ISO allows us to use those high shutter speeds when we need to. So high shutter speed or low shutter speed?
Low?
Oh, well, lightning is fast, so I would have thought it would have to be high.
True.
Okay, so Mary says high and Lori says low. It's a
Well-
slow shutter speed. It's 30 seconds. Because if you used a fast shutter speed, it would have cut the lightning as it moved across the sky. A slow shutter speed lets it record as it goes across the sky.
Oh, so this was not all like one shot. That would, because sometimes lightning goes the whole all
Yeah,
over. but
it's
this
one
actually-
it's one shot. It was a really, really cool lightning storm, yes.
Okay.
But it needed a 30-second to record all of that lightning as it's moving across the sky. 30 seconds.
Good job, Lori.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Woohoo!
Fast shutter speed or slow shutter speed?
I would think that would be 1/500 because you want stops running and flying.
Yeah, so very fast. So this is a 4,000th of a second shutter speed. We have plenty of light. You can see that. It's easy to get up to a 4,000th of a second shutter speed. And when she flipped, it was a stranger. I was just watching her do some acrobatics in a plaza. I asked her if she'd let me photograph her. She said yes. The first time she flipped for me, I didn't know what she was going to do, and I missed it completely. So then I had to say, "Would you mind doing that again?" Please. Yes. So if you don't know what they're going to do, sometimes it gets a little crazy. But if we want to blur some motion, it shows us, this viewer, that there's motion going on. If we want to blur some motion, it shows the viewer that there's some motion going on. So we don't have to freeze everything. So it is okay to sometimes blur motion as well as freeze it. And then the last thing I'll leave you with, because we're almost out of time, you know, the histogram that I told you about. So pull up one of those pictures that you took pull up one of those pictures on the back of your camera. And then push your INFO button 1 times, 2 times, or 3 times until we get to the histogram. Angie, on your camera, toggle. You have to toggle up 1 time, 2 times, 3 times until you get to the histogram. Did you see it?
Yes. Yes.
You got it?
Yes, ma'am.
Everybody else see the histogram?
Mhm.
You pull the picture up on the back of your camera and then push the info button 1 time, 2 times, or 3 times.
Yeah, I
Lori?
just have to push up on my display.
Oh, you just have to push up on your display? Okay, good.
Yeah,
Paula,
but-
did you get it?
Yes.
Good, good, good. Lori?
Not yet.
So pull your picture up on the back of your camera
Uh-huh.
and then push the info button. See the INFO button up at the top left? Push it 1 time, 2 times, or 3 times.
Wait, I don't think I have that. Top left
Back
of the
of the-
camera.
Back of the camera. Or use your toggle button and push up 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. Top toggle button. No?
I don't think so.
Okay, I'll shoot you instructions how to do it, okay?
Okay.
Okay,
I've seen it
okay.
before an accident. I've done it before.
Okay. So it should be either with DISP or INFO. You've got one of those two that's showing up. So this histogram is showing you how many of each color of pixel you captured. From the left side showing you the blackest black to the right side showing you the whitest white. And where this histogram becomes so important is that you want a histogram that goes all the way across. I don't care how many peaks and valleys it has. You want a histogram that goes all the way across, because that means that you captured from your blackest black to your whitest white. If your histogram goes all the way across, you've captured all your colors. If your histogram spikes on the right side, that's the white side. If your histogram has a spike, that is overexposed. So if you photographed a light in your room when we were just kind of goofing around taking pictures, you might have that light also blinking at you, your highlight indicator. Angie, your highlight indicator is on one screen and your histogram is on another screen. Everybody else, your histogram and your highlight indicator are on the same screen. You see how on my screen, the top histogram, I have a spike? You see how there's a spike over here on the right side? I'm only concerned about the spike all the way up the right side. Leading up to the right side is okay because those are light colors, but we don't want it going all the way up the right side. If it goes all the way up the right side, that's the blink. And I think in Sony's, they're calling that zebras or something like that, because that's the blink that you get on the back of your screen. Pay attention to this picture of the cat on the couch, and let me show you how I photographed this using the histogram as a guideline for me. The first time that I took the picture, the sun is coming through the upper left-hand corner. It's coming through the window. I know I'm going to get a really bright sun coming through that window, and as a result, I'm going to get a blown out area. I know that. So I turn the camera vertical, I dial in my f-stop and dial in my shutter speed, put my focus point down on the cat, and I take my picture the first time. I check my histogram, and my histogram is the one on the top. It shows me that I've got that huge area that's overexposed right there. And the blinks on the back of the camera are the window up here, the floor, the couch, and the cat. So I have overexposed the window, the floor, the couch, and the cat. So instead of balancing my light meter, I'm going to underexpose. I'm going to balance my light meter so that it's one stop toward the negative. Notice that your light meter has a negative on one side and positive on the other side. So I take my light meter and I underexpose by one stop, turn the camera vertical, put my light meter one stop underexposed, focus on the cat, take the picture again. Check the picture on the back of the back of the camera. Corner is blinking at me of the window. Floor is not blinking anymore. Couch is not blinking anymore, but the center of the cat is blinking. That means there's no fur on the cat. The cat is totally overexposed if it's blinking. So instead of balancing my light meter one stop underexposed, I balanced my light meter two stops underexposed. So when I balanced my light meter two stops underexposed, top of the frame is blinking at me. That's overexposed. Histogram still has a spike, but the floor is not blinking, the couch is not blinking, and the cat's not blinking. So I've now balanced my light meter properly and perfectly using the histogram as a guide. So when we're taking our pictures, we need to make sure that we're not overexposing those brights. If we do, then we need to underexpose, not put the light meter right in the middle, but move toward the negative. If the histogram looks like the bottom and it doesn't go all the way over, then we need to overexpose. So the histogram leads us to a properly exposed image. So use it to your advantage. Good?
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Paula.
So I could see that on my picture that I took. But what about when I'm looking through my viewfinder? Can I see a histogram like live so that I can?
If you want to put it up there, you can put it up there live on your camera. Yes. So that means you don't have to pull your camera down and guess. Yes.
So you can, if you can see that in your viewfinder, then you could do that. You could, you know, do that
Yes. You do it on the fly.
underexpose,
Yep.
and then you could take a better picture.
Exactly. Exactly. We don't have to do the trial and error thing. Yes.
Okay.
So that helps, but your camera has the in-camera viewfinder. I mean, the in-camera histogram. Most of the other ones don't. Mary's might, but that allows us to use that histogram as a guide to help us. Okay, so your homework assignment, here's what you're going to do. On your homework assignment, I've given you one homework assignment with two things. One's your shutter speeds, one's your f-stops. And on your instructions, I tell you how to upload them, or excuse me, I don't tell you how to upload them. I tell you, how to set them up. Just make sure that your background is far enough away from your subject when you're doing your f-stop so that you can really see it. If you want to do it in your kitchen, you can do it in your kitchen if you don't want to go outside. So you can do these. Just make sure your camera is steady. Tomorrow, I will send you an uplink so that you can upload these to my Dropbox, and then I will show them next week in class. Okay? If you have a WeTransfer or something like that and you want to transfer them to me that way, you're more than welcome to do it. So tomorrow, when I send you the recording from class, then I will also send you an upload to my Dropbox so that you can put your pictures in my Dropbox. You have until next, let me see, we're meeting on Tuesday, aren't we? You have until next Monday evening to submit your homework, or if you are absolutely up against a wall, I'll take them as early as Tuesday for you, okay? But send them to me whenever you finish. And then also, please feel free to send me anything also about how hard it was or how challenging it was or what you found and how you unlocked your camera, Angie, and, the things that you discovered, Children
Okay.
don't learn without being frustrated. And so it's the same thing with photography. So don't feel like it's horrible if you get frustrated, okay?
How difficult is it to transfer the photos off the camera to your Dropbox? Is it just like dragging it or something?
You can just drag them off. Do you have software like any of the Adobe products?
I don't, not at this point.
Not at this point. Okay. So yes, you can take them right off your card and then you can just slide them right into, you can just upload them into my Dropbox. If you need help, let me know.
Okay. I mean,
Okay.
this camera is a borrowed camera from my son-in-law, so I'm just like learning everything on the fly.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. But yeah, you'll take them you'll use a card reader or put them into your computer and then you'll upload them to me. Yeah.
Okay.
If you need help, let me know.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, guys, anything else?
Are we allowed to edit them, or do you want to see them just raw?
Yeah, go ahead and send them to me raw. You don't have to edit them. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You are allowed to not send me if they're like, if you had to do
Really
it.
ugly,
Some
really bad?
people have to do the exercise 5 times before they finally get the hang of it. So you don't have to send all that to me. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's okay. Learning experience. Okay, guys, y'all have a good week. Email me if you've got any questions. You'll get the recording tomorrow morning and or kind of mid-morning tomorrow morning, and then you'll get a link to the Dropbox as well. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so
perfect.
much.
Okay.
Thank you,
Good night,
Kathy.
guys.
Thank you.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.